Hello. The false accusations that removed my children came from the guardian ad litem, Erin Murphy McClure, as well as the forensic psychologist, Michelle Killow Nelson. That was the catalyst for removal of my children. And I tried to submit evidence on the record that report was perjurious and fraudulent, and that was obstructed by Judge Mary Langer at Oliver Hill Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court. I went from having very minimal visitation that was court ordered to my children not being brought to visitation. I would continuously show up for visits and they would not be brought. I also documented me attempting to see them by having people at the location just testify that I was there to visit my children and they were not brought. Many times I received no response to my communications that I was there for visitation, and other times the response I received was they don't want to see you. I also was not facilitated to have phone contact with them. The minimal email and phone contact I did have with them was extremely hostile. One of the agencies that heavily obstructed any kind of communication and access between me and my children was Richmond Christian School, and I encourage you to research the news articles pertaining to Cliff Williams and other people at that school as it pertains to child abuse. I had a documented incident with Cliff Williams where I expressed to him my concerns with his conduct as it pertained to my children, and that was disregarded. And in fact, I was threatened. While I was there, he threatened to call the police on me because he released my child into the custody of someone who was not a legal custodian. I have spent a substantial amount of money trying to fight this issue, and I also believe that I can't even really tally it up because I believe that my own assets were utilized against me to obstruct my access to my children. And I say that because it is documented that my ex used 2 different social security numbers. I've tried to get court people to validate his identity documents, to authenticate his identity documents, and they have repeatedly obstructed that process. Even though I have copy testees with a different social for him from his first marriage and divorce that clearly shows that this is a different social for him. There's been background investigations that indicate that there is substantial fraud going on as it pertains to his information, and yet nobody wants to get to the bottom of this. And the most recent activity levied against me several years ago has a different party listed than the name on that finding is not a party to the case. However, it's being utilized to try to intimidate and harass me from continuing to advocate for myself in court proceedings. I feel like it is a method that was used to try to silence me in all of the things that I brought forth. And another thing I would like to mention is that there are no financial records pertaining to what is alleged that I owe in terms of repayment. There's no financial records that can be provided either directly through the parties accusing me or through the Division of Child Support Enforcement. And so any enforcement action, to the best of my knowledge, is unethical, illegal, and immoral, and corrupt, and just completely fraudulent because there's no financial paper trail on which they have the legal grounds to try to threaten, intimidate, harass, threaten to incarcerate, anything like that when it comes to me. And I feel like it's all just in an effort to try to obstruct me speaking out about the court facilitated fraud. There were a lot of people that participated in the fraud against me, and I feel like their main goal in everything that they did was to financially enrich themselves. I feel like there was an extreme lack of disclosure. I think that this was a lot of fraud by omission, fraud by commission, extrinsic and intrinsic fraud. I believe that it rises to the level of a RICO case, and I do also feel very strongly, because of the public harassment that I've experienced, that these were all efforts that were made to either facilitate my demise by outside parties or to facilitate my psychological state being such that I would self-eliminate. I think that that was their ultimate goal, and I would not be surprised if there are people involved that have life insurance policies against me, hoping that they would be able to cash those in if something happened to me. So I feel like this was financially motivated targeting of me in order to cause me to no longer be here so that they could benefit financially from my demise. I'm not saying that lightly. I really do feel like that is what their end goal was. And I feel like that is not an isolated incident. I've spoken with many people caught up in the family court fraudulent system that seem to have very similar experiences with targeting by people within that system. I don't know what the remedy is, but I would really be encouraged if the people involved in the system, whether they be attorneys, judges, whatever the case may be, guardian ad litem, etc., I feel like they should be held financially and legally responsible when their recommendations result in the homicide or suicide of the parties involved, whether that be children that are surviving that system or whether it be one or the other parents trying to navigate and survive that system. I feel like when their actions cause those people that are in that system to self-harm or harm others, I feel like they should have their ability to practice permanently revoked. I feel like if they are sitting on the bench as a judge, they should have their ability to preside over any judicial matters permanently revoked. And I feel like they should have to pay financial restitution for the damage that they're causing. I don't think judicial immunity should be a thing. And I feel like until that is addressed, we're going to continue to see this rampant fraud and corruption, and I would very much like for that to stop happening. So I hope that you have found this information helpful, useful, insightful in some way, and feel free to reach out to me if you have similar situations that have occurred in your life. I can be reached at oceandesignsart@gmail.com. That's OCEANDESIGNZART@gmail.com. Thank you for your time. God bless.